Everybody, thanks for joining me. My name is Alex Tapia. I'm the president and founder of Aviation Retirement Strategies, and we're coming at you from our Pilot Money podcast studio here at our ARS National Headquarters at the George Bush Intercontinental Airport. Today, we're going to talk about the market-based cash balance plan. Now, this is a plan that's fairly new to most people, have never actually even heard of it, but it's a plan that's coming out in these new contracts that are being negotiated by the companies and the unions. Actually, Delta has already voted and ratified theirs. United Airlines is working on theirs, and so is American Airlines. I believe the FedEx is also working on one as well. So what exactly is this thing? What's it going to do? How does it benefit you, if at all? And it's just something that you should be participating in. So the market-based cash balance plan is basically kind of a first for pilots. And a lot of pilots don't actually know what it is. And a lot of actually people in general don't necessarily know what this type of a plan is. It's a plan that allows the company, when you have a defined contribution plan, which all of you at the major carriers have, to allow the company to contribute money into your account in a certain way, and which could be potentially beneficial for you in retirement. Now, currently, depending on the airline that you work for, there's already a program like that, but it's primarily set aside for specifically medical expenses. And it's an account that you don't necessarily want to have too much money in when you retire, and too much depending, of course, your individual situation. But you don't want to have an overabundance of money in this plan, because when you pass away, and if you're married, if both of you and your spouse have passed away, the money goes back to the pilots, depending on the plan that you have. Now, not every airline has this kind of a plan in place, but currently it either goes to a plan like that, or you have to pay taxes on the money, and it gets paid out to you basically as an after-tax amount. The problem is, when you're making the kind of money that most pilots are making at that level, you're usually in the pretty high tax brackets. It could be up to 37%, depending on the state that you live in. It could be up to 45%. Everybody's a little bit different, but that is a big hit to take from the taxes. And sometimes it's good to have an option to be able to avoid that, if at all possible. So the market-based cash balance plan is just another option in order to tax defer money, and it could be potentially more beneficial to you than any other plan that's available out there. Now, much like an RHA account or a retiree health account, depending on the airline that you work for, if that's even available to you, a market-based cash balance plan, the money that goes in there is generally not manageable by the individual. In other words, it's managed more like a pension fund, where it's actually managed pretty conservatively, but you do not have the investment choices or the ability to choose how that money gets invested. And for the most part, because it's technically a pension plan, or the money rather, will be invested more like in a very conservative, more like a 40% stock, 60% fixed income portfolio, which is generally set aside for people that are more closer to retirement. Now, another great advantage of a market-based cash balance plan is the fact that it's portable. So when you retire, and in most cases when you turn 59, actually 59 and a half, you can actually take the money out of the plan and you can put it into your own IRA, and then you can assign a beneficiary to it, meaning that when you pass away, that money can be transferred over to a loved one or a church or a charity or whatever of your choice, but you have full control of where that money goes after your passing, which is not the case with the current plans that are available today, and again, depending on the airline that you work for. One of the things that many of us are very familiar with is the fact that the airline industry is very cyclical, and when you have a pension plan, which is what the market-based cash balance is when you have a pension plan that's basically tied to the health of an airline, it can be troublesome knowing that in the future it may very well be potentially go away or be in danger of not being paid out to you because of the financial health of the company. A market-based cash balance plan doesn't really have that issue, because the money, once it's put into your account, it is completely 100% yours, and you are 100% vested. So you never have to worry about the health of the airline as you're working and as time goes by, because we know that anything can happen. But the one thing that you know for sure is that any money that's in that plan is also protected from the financial health of the airline, regardless of what it may be. Now, one of the good things I think about these plans as well is the fact that the money is guaranteed. When the company contributes to the account, whatever dollar that they put in there is guaranteed to be there for you when you retire, regardless of what the market does to the account. Because remember, the money is actually invested in even though it's a conservative portfolio, it is invested in the market. And anytime that you do that, you also always have some kind of market risk. Well, you don't have to worry about it in the case with the market-based cash balance plan, because when you retire, at the very minimum, you're guaranteed to get the money that was put in there or the account value, whichever is greater. Okay, so let's go ahead and recap here what this thing has, what the advantages and potential disadvantages are of this type of plan. First of all, the good thing about the money is that that gets put into the plan is that you can put money that goes beyond the IRS limits for a traditional qualified plan, which is the defined contribution plan or a 401k plan. The other thing is that the fact that your money is completely portable. So when you retire, you can take the money with you and it's yours, and you can pass it along to beneficiaries to whoever's to your liking, which is a great advantage to have, which is currently not the case with some of the plans that are in place today. Also, because the money is invested, it can potentially grow in the market, but at the very minimum, it's guaranteed for you. You're going to get at least the money that was put in there when you retire. So there's a certain level of safety there where it can mitigate the market risk that the money is taking when it's invested into a portfolio, even though it's conservatively invested. But one of the negatives about a plan like this is the fact that you cannot manage the money. So the money is actually beyond your control, and that comes into play. So maybe when you're younger, that could be potentially an issue. But the fact that you can manage the money, you have no say in how the money is managed, that could be potential negative. That could be maybe offset by the fact that the funds are guaranteed when you do retire. Now, the thing about plans like this is that they are voluntary. Nobody's going to make the decision for you, and the airline leaves the choice completely up to you on whether or not you want to participate in something like this. And of course, now this is a very individual choice, and you have to make this decision for yourself. On some plans, the decision that you make is irrevocable. Some plans, like United Airlines, for instance, they allow you to make it year by year, which is obviously much more advantageous. Unfortunately, with Delta, they had to make a decision back in June or July, whatever it was. And whatever decision that they made, it's a irrevocable decision. And it's important to, as you move forward, for those of you that still can make a choice, that you do it for the right reasons. And I'm not proposing that you do it or not do it. I'm not pro or con market-based cash balance plan. What I am pro for is to make sure that you make the right decisions for yourselves. And it's important to understand that your decisions are unique to you, because your financial life is as unique as a fingerprint, and you cannot follow somebody else's actions to match your personal financial life. So it all comes down to the kind of math that you do behind it. So money that goes into the market-based cash balance plan is going to be invested very conservatively, or for kind of not very conservative, but middle of the road conservative, which if you're young, that may not necessarily be advantageous to you, because you have a long time horizon. You can be a little bit more aggressive because you have that runway ahead of you. But if you're a little bit older, you don't necessarily have that much time. So let's assume that you are a 55-year-old captain and you're making well north of $300,000. More than likely, you're in the 37% tax bracket. Depending on the state that you live, you could up to be a 45% tax bracket. But just to keep the math simple, let's assume that you're in the 40% tax bracket. And let's say that you take a $10,000 investment and or a $10,000 potential paycheck, and you say, you know what, I want to go ahead and pay taxes on that, because I could think I can do better on my own in a more aggressive portfolio that I have control over. So I'm going to go ahead and pay the taxes today. And let's say that you have a $10,000 investment. So you pay the taxes on it, you end up with $6,000. If you follow the math all the way through, that $6,000, you literally have to make a 67% return on that investment just to get back up to $10,000, so you can start taking advantage of that maneuver. And that's going to take quite a long time. So it's important for you to be comfortable enough to be able to do that, because the investment, if they were fully invested in a tax-deferred environment, that $10,000, even though it would have been a more conservative return, would have probably been further ahead, because you did not have to originally overcome the taxes that you had and come up with a 60% rate of return. So it's all about the math, and it's all about whether this fits for you and it doesn't fit for you. Some people have other investments. They can do tax losses and depreciation and things like that. Everybody's a little bit different. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to guide you along and do the math so you can make the right decision for yourself and your family, because ultimately that's what it's all about. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, like I said, give me a call. Happy to answer anything for you guys. We'll keep you updated on any potential changes on the environment that we're currently in. But we appreciate you listening, and we'll be talking to you soon.